Hello, my name is Stephen Bell and I am an officer of the Stop the War Coalition. Today I want to speak to you briefly about a new threat facing the Palestinian people. The recently formed coalition government in Israel, has announced its intention to annex the Jordan Valley and the Israeli settlements in the West Bank on July the 1st. So this is an imminent action. The Jordan Valley is internationally recognized as Palestinian territory. There is no question of that. The settlements themselves are internationally recognized as illegal and a form of occupation of Palestinian territory. So, on both themes, the Israeli government will be breaking international law. However, that has never stopped the Israeli government in the past, and the fact is that the Israeli government is being supported by the Trump administration. They are supporting the Israelis because this action is part of Trump's so-called deal of the century. This is a proposal to terminate the conflict between Israel and Palestine at the expense of the Palestinians. The deal itself is 180 pages long and is composed of two parts. The first part is a political framework, the second part is an economic framework. The economic framework is much less important, so I will speak only briefly of that later. I want to talk about the political framework, which is the real threat to the Palestinian people. Firstly, the deal itself does not, which was drawn up without any contribution from the Palestinians. So it is essentially a deal against the Palestinians. The deal itself offers no guarantee of a future Palestinian state. Even if the Palestinians accept everything in the deal and act throughout as they're supposed to in this 100-page document, there's still no guarantee that they'll get a state at the end. Instead, the Palestinians are offered the protection of Israel. The Palestinians will be effectively disarmed. They will only be able to carry light arms. The police force will only be able to carry light arms. And they will never be able to have an independent army. So there's no question of the normal apparatus of a state for them. They are not entitled to self-determination. They are not. They will not have a separate state as such, and what they wish is dependent upon them adhering to the behaviour according to other people's acceptability. That is the United States government and the Israeli government. The borders between the Israeli state and the Palestinian regions will be entirely under the control of the Israelis. Everything passing in and out will be under Israeli control. The connecting roads will be under Israeli control. The big historic problem that the Palestinians face, a large part of them are living as refugees. The deal will settle this once and for all, removing their refugee status. It does this in the most brutal manner. Firstly, there will be no right of return to Israel of any Palestinians whatsoever, even those who can produce deeds of land and so on, does not matter. They will never be allowed to return. Palestinian refugees in camps in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and elsewhere will be expected to take up the citizenship of these so-called host countries. Those who wish to return to the limited Palestinian territories will be subject to the approval of Israel. So that if refugees wish to return from Syria or from Lebanon or any other country which the Israeli government says is hostile to Israel, they will not be allowed to return as a right. They will be only allowed to return if the Israelis say they can return. The UN organization set up to defend Palestinian refugees is to be abandoned, to be wound up. And Palestinian refugees who wish to claim compensation will be dependent upon the decision of a board jointly organized between the United States and a representative of the Palestinians. The deal refuses to accept any contribution from Hamas and similar parties to the Palestinian governing structure. They will not be allowed to take part in any Palestinian governing structure. This despite the fact that in the most recent and authoritative elections, the Hamas were overwhelmingly the most popular party in Palestine. The territory that the Palestinians will have will be without the Jordan Valley and without the settlements. These are going to be given to the Israelis. So the Israelis are only acting a little in advance of what Trump proposes anyway. In return for a loss of the fertile Jordan Valley and fertile land in the settlements and so on, they will be rewarded with 2 pieces of desert adjacent to the Egyptian border, which are going to be linked by as yet non-existent roads to Gaza. The Jerusalem, which is held to be the capital of Palestine as much as the capital of Israel, will now simply be the capital of Israel. Palestinians will be offered a new capital outside of the boundaries of East Jerusalem. And finally, on the economic plan. So that's the political framework, a disaster for the Palestinian people. The economic plan, the Trump administration claims that the most important thing for the Palestinians is to improve their welfare and to create prosperity for them. Issues of national rights and self-determination do not matter, according to Trump. But the economic plan itself is a pretty shoddy affair. The big number is $50 billion, but this money isn't guaranteed. It's supposed to be international investment, private capital. Not guaranteed. It's over a 10-year period, and it's going to be divided between projects in Lebanon, Israel, Egypt, Jordan, and Palestine. So 5 countries. There will be no compensation for the destruction imposed upon the Palestinian economy by the Israelis, and this investment is dependent upon the Palestinians accepting all of the political framework. This will never happen. The Palestinians have already rejected it. All the major leaders, all the parties have rejected this, and it will never be accepted because it represents the destruction of Palestine. So what can we in Britain do? Firstly, we can contact our MPs and insist that the British government does not make any concession to the Trump plan and to this proposed annexation. You can press your MP to sign EDM 464, which calls for the British government to impose sanctions upon Israel should the Israeli government proceed with the annexation. So do not stand idle. Do what little you can. It does matter. It will help the Palestinians, and it will only take a little bit of your time. But the Palestinians will refuse to go quietly into oblivion. we must ensure that our voices are raised in their defence. Thank you.